Welcome back to Who's Fi TV, your hub for real estate, financial literacy, and self-betterment content. I know you're probably wondering, well, why does Risen sound so different today? Well, that's because we got new equipment, okay? I wasn't even gonna leave the elephant in the room unaddressed. Like, I'm here to let you guys know right off the rip, I am your co-host for the Untitled Chapter podcast. And that is why I just took a little bit of the equipment home with me to use for this YouTube channel so that you guys could get this dark, lovely, ravishing voice on the channel as well too, right? The Untitled Chapter podcast is where we're gonna be talking about mortgages, real estate, finances, and our journeys to success on a weekly basis, me and my co-host, Michelle Ferrugia. So go ahead and check that out on all streaming platforms. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube for you visual listeners. So make sure you guys check that out. Now heading into today's topic, which is how to maximize your purchasing power in the real estate space, right? But before I get into any of the tips, I need you guys to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn that thumbs up button blue, and hit the notification bell as well so you're alerted every single time I drop a new video. So now that we got that out the way, let's dive right into it, right? We're gonna be talking about how to get your full potential and maximize yourselves in terms of purchasing power in the real estate space, because trust me, I know, it is crazy out there right now. The market is going absolutely bananas. And what I want to do is help people to really have the best standing and position possible when getting into this space, because the last thing I want to see anybody do is shortchange themselves. So I'm going to be suggesting ways for you to maximize your purchasing power in the real estate space right now, because as I mentioned in previous videos, it's about what you qualify for in terms of a mortgage, what type of a down payment you bring to the table, and that's really going to determine your purchasing power, okay? So I'm going to help you guys out with some tips that are going to help bolster one of the two things, if not both, and how you can kind of maximize yourself in the real estate space. So the first tip that I want to give people is gifted down payments. Right now, gifted down payments are at an all-time high. People are getting gifts from their parents, from their siblings, from anybody in their family construct to help them get into the market right now, right? Because it is damn near impossible to outsave this current market. By the time you save up another 10K to go towards your purchase, prices in your area probably have gone up by 20K. So to save up with that pace, at that pace, is an incredibly difficult task. And that is why people are really utilizing gifted down payments. The person who's going to be giving you the money is going to sign off on a letter that says that this is a gift, this is not a loan. However, you and that individual can have an off the record, under the table agreement for you to pay back this money at a later date once you can capitalize off the equity in the market, right? The biggest thing is to get into the market, capitalize off of these insane appreciation numbers, and then that way that's equity that's going to be building into your pocket as opposed to you trying to chase that equity and get into the market, right? So it's all about perspective and all about getting in earlier while you still can, because it's not going to be long before people are literally priced out of markets everywhere, okay? So gifted down payments can be really helpful for people to get into the real estate space. Never mind benefit number two, which is helping them qualify for a conventional mortgage as opposed to a high ratio mortgage. So let's just say for your purchase that you're trying to get in on, you've saved up 15% down payment. If you got the extra 5% gifted to you, that could be the difference between you having a conventional mortgage and a high ratio mortgage. And I know you're probably wondering, well, what's the difference, Royston? Well, as I've explained in my previous video, which you should go check out right now, a conventional mortgage is 80% of the purchase price, right? That means that you've put in 20% down payment. And the difference between that and a high ratio mortgage is that A, you can amortize your mortgage over 30 years as opposed to 25 here in Canada. And that means that your mortgage is now stretched over a longer period of time, meaning cheaper monthly mortgage payments, right? If you have a set number stretched over a longer period of time, that means that the payments in between that period of time are actually lesser. So you're paying less on a month-to-month basis to satisfy that debt, as opposed to cramming that same amount over a shorter period of time, meaning higher payments. So on top of that, now you're going to be able to bypass the mortgage insurance, which is a premium that's put into your mortgage on top of its monthly payments, right? Mortgage insurance is something that lenders put in place to protect themselves from borrowers defaulting on their mortgage payments, right? So that's actually a premium put on top of your mortgage in addition to it. So not only are you gonna be paying higher mortgage payments because your loan is over a shorter period of time, but you're also gonna have a premium that is put in on top of that monthly payment in addition to it. So it's like a double whammy. And if you can bypass both of those things, all the better. So if you can get a gifted down payment now to bring you to that 20% down payment mark, the ball's in your court. You're in a very favorable position because you have longer period now to pay off this loan, which means cheaper mortgage payments, and also you get to bypass that mortgage insurance, which is an extra expense that is non-negotiable when you have less than 20% down payment. So getting a gift can be really impactful in a good way and also helps you maximize your purchasing power. So tip number 2 is using a co-applicant, right? So a co-applicant, much like the gifted down payment, is you leveraging somebody else to help you out with qualifying for a bigger mortgage amount, right? So when you're applying for a mortgage by yourself, it's going to be based off of mainly your income as well as the debts that you have outstanding as well too, that your income is going to be obligated to satisfy before qualifying for a mortgage, right? So we're going to look at your income. Let's just say you make 100K a year. And then we also gonna look at your debts, right? So how much of your income is left over after satisfying your debts is really gonna determine how much you qualify for in the form of a mortgage, right? Well, what if we have somebody else and their income to help qualify for a larger mortgage amount in addition to your income, right? So now it's not just your 100K a year, it's your 100K plus someone else's 100K going together to qualify for a larger mortgage amount, right? So that can be a really big game changer for you, having more purchasing power, because now it's not just your income qualifying for a mortgage, it's you and somebody else's, which means a bigger mortgage amount, which means bigger purchase price, right? So some things that I really want people to be mindful of when selecting their co-applicant is, what is this person's entire financial portfolio looking like, right? Because someone who may come into this with added income can also come into it with a lot more debt as well that may actually end up weakening your stance in this purchase scenario. So for example, if this is someone who makes X amount of income, but their debts actually outweigh their income, they're not actually a valuable co-applicant in this scenario. So I want you to be mindful. You want to find someone who has a lot of income and not so much debt attached to that income coming onto your profile, because if that's going to be the case, then you actually weaken your stance. So that's something that I really want people to be mindful of. Also, when selecting your co-applicant, you need to be mindful of the fact that if they're going to be on your mortgage, now that is going to be debt that they carry forth going forward for whatever it is that they're going to be doing in the future, right? So if they're looking to get into the real estate space themselves in the near future, that's something that you want to be mindful of, because the last thing you want is for someone to be helping you out at their detriment, right? Because when they go and buy their own property, they're going to be attached to your mortgage, which is going to weaken their stance in getting their property, right? So it's all about figuring out who is the best person to be a co-applicant in your purchasing endeavors, because you need to be mindful of the now and helping yourself, but also their situation going forward and not putting a hindrance and limiting their personal capabilities going forward, right? So now tip number 3, and this is getting another part-time job, okay? If you're someone who works full-time and you realize that you want to really push up how much you get approved for in the form of a mortgage, more income is going to help you qualify for more of a mortgage. And I want to point out a couple of things here, because I actually tried to implement this in my first home purchase and I totally fumbled it, because there's a couple key components that I did not really account for, and it actually ended up being completely useless. So some things that I really want to point out in this, for this particular tip, and that is making sure that your income actually ends up being usable. So what's going to be the key determining factor on whether this part-time job is going to be usable income or not is making sure that you have guaranteed income from it, right? Which means that you're a permanent employee first and foremost, and that the employer is going to guarantee you a set amount of hours or a set salary from this position. And that's where I kind of ran into a wall when I tried to implement this for myself. So quick little story time here. When I was getting my first property back in 2019, I was coming up a little bit short for the mortgage I was trying to qualify for. So I was like, let me be a smart ass and get a nice little part-time job at, I won't say the name, a coffee pub. And I was like on my second shift and I was like, can I get a job letter? Can you guys say that I'm gonna be getting paid X amount here, please? And thank you. And they're like, no, because you're literally on probation still. It's your second day at work. We are not going to give you a job letter because you're not a permanent employee. So that plan went out the window and I quit the next day because it was completely useless for what I was actually trying to use the job for. But if you are someone who knows that you're going to be needing X amount of income to qualify for X amount of a mortgage in the coming days or coming months, so I should say, then you should know to get that job 3 months prior so you can pass your probationary period so that you are now A, a permanent employee and no longer on the probationary period, and B, you have a guaranteed amount of income coming in from this job. Okay, so those are two things that I really want to point out when trying to implement this particular tip. And this kind of works really in favor of people who are maybe closing on a pre-construction where they know that their date for closing on this property is maybe a little bit further out, whereas someone who's looking to buy a house resale might not have that 90-day window to get a job, pass your probationary period, and actually use this income. So this is something that's going to be pretty circumstantial when it comes to using this tip, but still useful nonetheless. Also, I would like to point out, once you close on your property and your mortgage is signed, sealed, and delivered, you can quit that job. Yes, you cannot lose your mortgage by quitting this part-time job after you've closed on it. The key is making sure that you have the job when you're leading up to the closing. Make sure you close on that property. Once you close on it, they can't take that mortgage back from you, okay? You can go ahead and throw that part-time job to the wolves. It is done. It served its purpose. You can move on. Also, I would like to point out as well that there are certain lenders that will actually recognize income while you're on your probationary period. However, they are very few and far between, and I would not want people to bank on this. But there are alternatives. But this is why you contact your handy dandy trusty mortgage broker like me, who can figure all that out for you and know exactly where to take you in terms of lenders to make sure that we're getting the best potential for you. Okay, so hit me up if that's something that you want to look into. Now going on to tip number 4, which is satisfying outstanding debt, okay? And I know you're probably wondering, well, Royston, like, duh. And I want people to understand that it's not as obvious as you think. There are a lot of people that don't understand this, and I want to go through a really specific scenario that can really show you how maybe sacrificing some of your down payment and some of your savings to clear debt entirely can actually result in you having more purchasing power. Okay, so I'm gonna take my time out to go ahead and utilize my nice little handy dandy whiteboard because I got a lot of feedback, which I do take heed to. I love you guys' feedback. Someone said that they are a visual learner and they would really benefit from me writing out numbers and really showcasing examples, and I'm gonna do that for you. I don't want to put the onus on my lovely editor because I don't want to put all that math on him. I'm gonna take it on myself, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you how using some of your savings to cancel out debt entirely can actually result in you having more purchasing power in the real estate space. Give me 1 second, okay? Okay, so I'm back here. I took a little bit of time out to go ahead and write on my little whiteboard over here. Hopefully you guys can bear with me through my penmanship. I've been out of school for a little bit, so bear with me on that one. But I have here a scenario where I have an individual. Let's just use you as the viewer. Hopefully the glare from the ring light is not too distracting. But basically we have a scenario here where the person who is going to be buying the property here makes 100K annually, okay? That's going to be constant throughout both scenarios here. In the first scenario, they've got a 20K car loan out that requires them to make $500 monthly payments towards that car loan, right? So it's just that one debt that they have outstanding. There's no credit card debt, there's no line of credit debt. However, they do have that car loan obligation for $500 a month, okay? They have $170,000 worth of savings for a down payment to use towards a property. That's great. Very, very fruitful amount for a down payment, okay? However, they're gonna be leaving that car loan out and they're gonna see what they qualify for in terms of purchasing power with that car loan still staying outstanding, okay? So roughly they're gonna qualify for about $660,000 for their purchase price, right? And that's because they have $170,000 worth of a down payment. They qualify for about a $490,000 mortgage, and that gives them to a purchase price of about $660K, okay? So now in scenario B, or scenario number 2, I take $20K from their down payment to pay off the car loan in full. So there's now no longer $500 monthly payment towards their car loan, right? So we've sacrificed some of their down payment to clear out some debt. Now they're completely debt free, okay? This means that their income gets to stretch out further for their mortgage qualification. So as you can see now, without paying that $500 monthly towards their car loan, they actually qualify, bear with me here, they actually qualify for about $575K of a mortgage, okay? Sorry, the lighting's looking all crazy. So they actually qualify for a higher mortgage, right? And now they have $20K less for their down payment, so they actually have $150,000 for their down payment. And this actually means that they qualify for a higher purchase price, okay? So as you can see, by sacrificing $20K of their down payment, they were able to completely wipe out that car loan, okay? That means no more $500 going towards your car loan. And because they did that, their income now was able to stretch further and qualify for a higher mortgage. As you can see, to be specific, qualified for $85,000. Wait, is it 85? I mean, my math is mathing. Yes, it is. They qualified for $85,000 more of a mortgage, right? So by wiping out that debt that required a $500 monthly payment, they were able to qualify for nearly almost $100,000 more of a mortgage, right? So because of that, they have more allowed to them in the form of a mortgage, and they still have $150,000 left over in the form of a down payment, and those things combined leaves them with a purchase price of about $725,000 in purchasing power, right? So by wiping out that debt, they can actually afford to buy $65,000 more in the property, right? So their money goes further by reducing that debt. Getting that debt out of the way is very key, and that's why I really strongly urge people to reduce debt as much as possible before getting into the real estate space, because not only is that less expenses to worry about, that also helps your income stretch a lot further. So that is something that I really want to show people in terms of how the reduction of debt can be very impactful and help you maximize your purchasing power in the real estate space, okay? I could do these examples all day. I literally play around with numbers for fun because I'm a math nerd. So I've seen a lot of scenarios where with real life clientele, as well as just me fiddling around with my calculator and my number cruncher, and seeing how debt can really derail people's real estate endeavors, because it can be really crippling to the income that they bring to the table, right? The key thing that I really always tell people is income is king. However, debt is the king killer, okay? Debt has dethroned a lot of people's income, because having enough of it can really make your income futile, because it can really deteriorate how much of your income is really left over to be used towards qualifying for a mortgage. So that is tip number 4. Debt reduction. Get that debt out of the way so that your income can go further and help you qualify for more of a mortgage, okay? Our final tip for the day is contributory income, okay? And I know you're probably wondering, well, what does that mean? Is that another job? No, it is not. Contributory income is other income that people actually receive that they don't realize is usable income in terms of qualifying for a mortgage. A couple of them that I really want to point out right now is child tax benefit. Your child tax benefit is usable income when qualifying for a mortgage, right? So if you're someone who receives a monthly baby bonus because you have children, that is usable income. Do not be afraid to bring that up. If you have a good mortgage agent in your corner, they will have already inquired on that, because they know that that is income that can be used to help boost your qualification stance in this real estate space, okay? Other types of contributory income is spousal support, and child support can be used as well. I am by no means encouraging people to have children or get divorced and receive spousal support in order to use towards buying a house. I do not think you should go ahead and do those things in order to buy a house. I don't want people to misconstrue this tip at all. Do not have kids in order to try and have a house. That is not the reason to go and have kids, okay? However, if you already have children, if you're already receiving spousal support, if you're already receiving child support, that is income that we can use towards you qualifying for a larger mortgage amount, right? That is income that is recognizable by these lenders, okay? You're actually doing yourself a disservice by leaving money off the table. You have money that you're receiving, use it if possible, okay? Last tip for the day, I'm actually giving you a 6th one. This is bonus. B lenders, okay? The B lending space is really crucial and really impactful because I know a lot of people have this obsession and this desire to fit into the A lending space, and granted, me too. I would love to be with one of these big 5 banks and these big institutions that have the sexy interest rates. However, they are not the end all be all. The B lender space is very beneficial to certain individuals, and there's a certain demographic that it actually appeals to more than others. And I'm talking to my self-employed folks right now, okay? Because B lenders actually recognize self-employed income a lot better and easier than A lenders, because A lenders are going to require you to be having 2 years minimum of recorded income for your self-employment to make sure that it is realized. And if you don't have it, then it's almost going to be unrecognizable, and that is income that's going to go to waste, right? However, going to the B lender space, they're able to recognize self-employed income a lot easier. So that's income that you can use now to qualify for a higher interest rate. To qualify for a higher mortgage amount. Yes, you do have to factor in the fact that there is going to be slightly higher interest rates in the B space. However, the B lender space is very competitive with the A lender space now, where the interest rates are very comparable, and it may actually be beneficial to be in the B lender space because of how small the margin is between the 2 types of lenders, right? Also, another reason why the B lender space is something that you should look into if you're looking to maximize your purchasing power in certain scenarios, because the ratios that they allow in the B lender space are able to go up to a higher amount, meaning that more of your income is able to go towards the expenses with owning a house, and outside of owning the house, that is going to be recognized and allowed in the B lender space. In the A lender space, they only let your income go up to a certain ratio threshold to be used and recognized in that space. And if you go over it, you're no longer able to play in that space, meaning you got to reduce some of the expenses that go along with it, or you just don't qualify for that mortgage. However, in the B lender space, they allow you to go up to a higher ratio, meaning that more of your income can now be recognized as going to be satisfactory to that debt. So, you know, maybe now you can use up to 60% of your income to go towards that debt, as opposed to the A lending space where the ratios are 39% and 44% respectively between the GDS and TDS. For, you know, those of you who are not familiar with mortgage jargon, which I'm not expecting you to be, your GDS and your TDS are basically the expenses associated with owning said property, as well as TDS, which is your total debt servicing ratio, which is how much of your income is used up for all of your debts, including owning the property, right? So if your ratios can only go up to 39 and 44 respectively in the A space, going up to 60 can be really beneficial in the B space, because that's more income that'll be able to go towards more expenses, meaning you have more wiggle room. Okay, that was a mouthful. This whole video was a mouthful. Hopefully it was helpful nonetheless. This was a pleasure. This was fun. I got to really enjoy writing on that whiteboard. So for that alone, and my penmanship, because it is not easy to write on these whiteboards, make sure you guys give me a thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you click the notification bell as well, so that you're notified every single time I drop a new video. And also, before I forget, make sure you guys slide over to all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and check out the Cognitive Capital podcast that I will be co-hosting every single week, talking about real estate, mortgages, finances, you know, our journeys to success and everything in between. And it's a blast over there. So make sure you guys are locked in on all levels, on all platforms, and we will be back soon. We will be back soon. Why do I sound like damn Looney Tunes character? Peace. It was a pleasure.